really relating to that higher education digital journey, the changes that are going on, how we've helped some of our customers, and more importantly, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, we're going to have Wee Sen from SMU talk about their journey with open source, with Drupal, and with Acquia. So I want to start setting off a little bit of context here. I want to talk about, okay, how Acquia, and this is where we believe we help with higher education, is empowering institutions to respond to the rapidly shifting demands, attracting and engaging students and alumni through the personalized digital experiences. So we're looking beyond more than just putting web pages up with some information. We need to be able to communicate, or you need to be able to communicate with the students depending on what stage they're in. And it's not just text, it could be on a web page, it could be sort of lifestyle content, it'll be attraction, it'll be one-to-one communications, especially on digital now as we move into this COVID times. Not so many students are going back to campus at the moment. So you need to be able to communicate them with them in many different ways. And this is a great quote from PwC and their perspectives in higher education, is each institution has to be able to better communicate their value proposition due to the increased competition and awareness of the student as a consumer. There's lots of choice out there, isn't there? Especially, I mean, look here in Singapore, a lot of great universities and institutions here. They're all competing for local and foreign students to come in, getting that share, getting the funding to do that. So you need to be able to stand out in your own unique ways. And how can we look at doing this? So one of the areas is bringing that digital experience to life, or bringing the campus to life. So that campus, especially this year, we've seen that campus really broaden from the physical campus into the digital campus as well. Lots of students have been getting used to, in essence, it's like homeschooling, but directed by the university. They're learning in different ways. They're also seeing hybrid approaches where there's lessons online, communications online with the faculty departments, their tutors, the admissions, student unions and things like that are a mixture of both digital and in person. So be able to provide that online experience and that compelling overview, that engagement is an absolute must now. Be able to recruit both online and offline. We're probably going to see some open days are going to go pure digital. This is a real shift in what is going on now. And we're talking about open source as well. So how do you know open source is going to work for you? So look at how you implement at the moment. So at the moment, you probably have some legacy systems. You maybe have different types of technologies. Maybe WordPress is used by one department. You may have Drupal used by another department, which is great. You may have something like a legacy system like Kentico or something like that, that's sitting on another department, and trying to bring that unified branding from your university, the unified messaging, and showing that you are one university gets difficult then. So trying to bring that open source into play, having a unified solution is really going to benefit that experience. But also, if you're having this fragmented experience, so it's like walking into a completely different world. If you're going from one part of the digital campus to another, it's going to start to lose a bit of confidence in the students. So they're getting this disjointed experience. You need to be able to give that messaging across. And this also begins with your different departments and different faculties. We're going to hear a little bit more later on from Wee Sen, how some of these kingdoms can interact or not between each other. But these are really lost opportunities to build that audience and generate that engagement if you're not really working together and speaking to each other. You tend to get delays, disrupted online experiences that I talked about, but also you start to get, if you're using disparate systems across different departments, you start to see security risks, etc., because you're having to maintain all of these different areas, and that's not great. You're starting to get costs build up. And if you go beyond open source into more of a closed system, you start to see these costs really build up, because how much funds do you have to get onto the new version of the platform. You have to pay these licenses, you have to keep progressing. If you want to shift, that can be expensive because you have to move everything across from a closed system. And if you do want to move to open source, then, and you want to maybe, I mean, Acquia actually does hosting and stuff, then you want to move off, we're not going to keep you there. You can actually host and manage this yourself. I mean, that's okay. We don't want to keep you closed in. That's what open is all about. It's all about cost efficiencies and moving forward. And open source, at the end of the day with your teams, if you're using it yourself, you can actually teach this to your students as well. And because it's open, they can go and download the software on the machine. They can go and download Drupal at home, and they can learn this themselves. And isn't that a great advocacy for openness and teaching it and be able to use it themselves and moving forward? I mean, I think this is the way that educations are thinking, and this is the way you should be advocating your students as well. And when we look at the student life cycle, okay, so quite often we think of digital, it's like, oh, we want that digital experience that starts on the open day. They sign up a registration form. But really, that student experience starts way beyond that, way before that. They're actually looking at things like consideration before you even know who they are. So you need to think about that student life cycle way before they sign up for the open day. And when they graduate, is that the end of their journey with your institution? Absolutely not. It goes way beyond that. So you need to look at the student life cycle in its entirety. And this is where Wee Sen's going to talk about how he actually helps drive some of that with SMU. So you need to look at the engagement going forward across that entire life cycle. As I said before, it's not just about putting some information on the web page. You need to understand how you're interacting, be able to use and personalize the data that you're getting, and really feel like the students are interacting with you, especially as we move into more of this digital world moving forward. So being able to look at that end-to-end life cycle is absolutely important. And then last point I wanted to bring up on this is about things like security as well. I already mentioned before about having different systems and different areas between departments and how that can be a real risk when it comes to things like security. But what's the real cost about that? So exposure to government penalties is never a nice thing, but also students or even the younger generations, they're more than willing to provide information to you, provide data to you, but they need to know that you are trusted with it. So look at things like a couple of days ago with Scoot. Okay, that wasn't a security problem they had when they sent all those emails. I think I got about 25 in my inbox from different people's flights informations, but it was about governance and control over that data. So if you have all of these different systems, it's much more harder to be able to govern and control that information and processes. So if you start to then lose a bit of control, things like that happen, or you do a data leak or something like that, it's going to be a real confidence hitter for your students, for even the parents, even who are looking and encouraging their kids to go somewhere. So you want to make sure that you've got security. And then when people are interacting with you more on digital these days, which we see a lot of this year, you want to make sure you've got good uptime as well. Because if you basically have your systems go down, or you've got loss of interaction within there, that's going to bring more penalties and bring more loss of confidence as well. So you want to make sure you've always got that uptime. And this is where Acquia really comes into play, because yes, Drupal itself is open source. You can go and install it, you can host it yourself, you can manage it yourself, but where's the, if you're going to be looking after all of that yourself, of course, there's going to be a bit of risk. You want to make sure that your teams will be able to innovate and push forward and not have to worry about, do we have the latest security patches? Do we have the latest versions of things running? Is it all uptime? This is where Acquia comes in. So not only do we look after that system, we make sure it's up and running and giving that great performance moving forward. And a little bit of a background about Acquia. We do actually, we're fairly large. We've got great customer satisfaction rating. And we're deeply embedded in that open source community. Now, the founder of Acquia, Dries, we was on a webinar with him yesterday. If you didn't join, we can give you a link to that. Just drop us an email. But Dries, the founder of, or co-founder of Drupal, is actually our CTO, and he actually developed Drupal. So we're deeply embedded within there. We help drive that Drupal open source landscape. We're a huge contributor to them. I think it's about one in 4 sites or something like that are running on open source, open source now. Vast majority of them on Drupal. We've got over 3,000 customers who are using Acquia to drive that Drupal and that maintain that going forward. So we're very embedded within the open source community and driving a lot of the larger customers as well. Some of those, for example, like GWU in the US, they had their challenges with internal infrastructures, many sites, and they were kind of losing control of that from an IT perspective, and moving forward, we'll be able to manage that. So look at some of these results here. Over 300 sites managed to our Site Factory, which is a site management tool that Acquia can provide in just 7 weeks. 90% decrease in time required to provision a new site. And you're going to hear a little bit about that from Wee Sen and how SMU actually saw that as an issue. And great, 100% recorded site uptime. And that is so important, especially for this year, because you're doing so much digital communication with your students and the rest of your team as well, because a lot of them are working from home. We've got Bentley University. They were migrating 70,000 pages across the university site, migrated within Drupal. They had a small web team that is facilitating the content updates from more than 150 editors across campus. And again, you'll hear from Wee Sen how they've got lots of different content editors across different departments, and how Acquia and Drupal and Wee Sen was able to bring those together. And the great thing is they really help their bottom line as well. Because at the end of the day, yes, you're an education facility, but you do have budgets and funds, and they had an estimated savings of 75% in comparison to their previous investments. So not only did they give a better experience, they were able to save a lot of money doing it, which is perfect. And the last one I wanted to bring up was Iowa, University of Iowa. And I wanted to talk about these very briefly, because they're not just using Drupal and Acquia to do web pages, they're actually using that content in a headless way to do content on their different screens. So campus-wide screens, signage, reaching the classrooms, the dorms, the public buildings, and that's integrated with their university web platform. So it's a create once and reuse, not just on the desktop web page, but apps, smartwatches, screens all around the campus. And that's replacing proprietary hardware and software solutions with a real-time Drupal solution. So again, saving them money, consolidated content and output on it. So it's a really nice story about, don't just think of web pages, but much more beyond with Drupal and Acquia. Got a lot of different customers. I mean, you can see here, it's almost a bit like an Ivy League listing with people like Harvard, Yale. We've got Kent State there, Stanford. A bit more locally, we've got SMU, who you're going to hear from in a second. SIT. We've got INSEAD around there. City U in Hong Kong. Lots of different university use cases because they see the value of open source. They see it as in their blood, and Acquia really helps them on that journey. So I'm going to pass off now to Wee Sen from SMU. He's going to give a great story. He's going to show a little bit of a video. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to pass across to Wee Sen, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Okay. I'm going to share his screen. Make sure he's not on mute as well.
Okay, let me just, can you hear me now?
We can, thank you very much. I'll go on mute, that's enough speaking.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Okay, good morning, thanks Rachel and Tony. Just now I wasn't allowed to unmute. My name is Wee Sen, I'm from Singapore Management University, and thank you for having me in this webinar. Perhaps not all of you are familiar with SMU, so I have a 40-second clip just to share with you of the sights and scenes in the campus. Okay, as you can see, we are located right in the city center. SMU is 20 years young. We are one of the 6 autonomous universities in Singapore. As a campus, we have about 10,000 students, 500 faculty, and 700 non-teaching staff. Our programs span across multi-disciplines. We combine, say, business with IT or law with economics in our degrees. We are a fairly international community. Our students come from 40 over countries, and 4 in 10 of our faculty are from outside Singapore. We have good graduate outcomes. 7 in 10 of our students secure a job before graduation. So that's kind of like SMU in the physical world. What is SMU like online? Online, we are smu.edu.sg. In terms of traffic and content, we are average for a university of our size. We have about 130 sites, a few million views a month, and about 35,000 content pages. The central IT team is very small. We only have a team of 3 to 4, but we work with a distributed network of about 400 content contributors around the campus. They manage content in entire sites or down to just the level of a few pages. So for the main part of my presentation, the story of SMU Web, I will do it in 3 parts. First is the pain that we faced in the early days. Yeah, no pain, no change. And then we look at how our solution was open source, Drupal, a little bit about how we use Acquia, and then finally some plans for us in the days ahead. So first, the pain of the early years. So this was about maybe 7 to 8 years back. Our webs undergo changes every few years. You can see some screenshots from way back 20 years ago, from the Wayback Machine. Kind of captured the screenshots. So as you can tell, every 3 to 4 years, we undergo major changes. Over the years, as the years go by, the pages get longer and richer. This is just fairly recent, until just about last week. So in the early days, the university relied on a commercial CMS. This CMS can be accessed only within the university network. You can see that pages were static, HTML. Functionality was actually limited to what the CMS could offer. Sometimes we have to pay for features that we don't need. And for the features we want, they are often told that they're on a roadmap that's very, very long. So content management system updates were not that frequent. And if there are major upgrades, they usually cost quite a bit. And bug fixing also took quite some time. This is another view of our content contributors needing to dig through nested folders just to find their files. And sometimes it can be confusing for them. The publishing engine was also unreliable. Sometimes there was unexpected latency. You could get pages that are pushed to live, but somehow they don't go live for unknown reasons. And that was just the back-end part. For the front end, our webmasters actually need to learn HTML. The business users need to contend with a tool known as Macromedia Dreamweaver MX 2004, which was really quite overwhelming for them. The installation, the license tracking, the mapping of the drives, the definition of the sites, all this contributed to a lot of pain. So you can tell clearly that the pages were hard to update for us. There was a lack of extensibility of the function in the original or the old CMS, leading to a lot of pain for the university. It was time for change. We the commercial CMS really wasn't meeting our needs. So you've seen the pain. Now we will talk a little bit about what we did to ease the pain. We decided quite early on that we wanted to do an open source solution. And I'll share with you 4 main reasons why we do that. First, of course, is the cost of ownership, like what Tony was talking about. Licensing, implementation, maintenance, and support was a huge cost. When we used the commercial CMS, a major component was the licensing cost, especially when the university was growing. The more people needed to use the CMS, the more we had to pay. So when we moved on to open source, we directly controlled that component very well. And the total cost of ownership was also controlled further when we moved on to the cloud, which I'll elaborate a little later. Open source to us also represented very modern software development practices. There was a lot of modularity, flexibility. There's lower customization cost in the long run. The code that we produced was cleaner, a lot more accessible, and a lot more maintainable. Education. We are, after all, education. So we see a strong moral component in open source. In open source, there's a lot of effective collaboration. There's a lot of active sharing. There's a lot of continuous learning. And embracing open source to us is a way of teaching the next generation somehow. So we kind of strongly identify with that. Last but not least, this is something that we most believe in. Once we move to open source, we are able to get our developers to shift to higher order work, higher value work. Yeah? Adopting open source allowed the developers to instead of submitting tickets to the vendor because things didn't work, they now have an opportunity to problem solve, to build new functions. They can also tap on the power of the community, and they're not limited to just ideas within the organization. Solutions were then, of course, more robust, and they can do work that matter because there's less duplication. You can build on top of what others have done. And this in turn is a way for us to attract talent as well as retain them. I'm doing a little plug for my team in Singapore. SMU developers are kind of form a certain percentage of the people who are certified by Acquia. And one of my managers is actually the first Drupal Grandmaster in Singapore. Hi, Jim. So it was clear we wanted open source and we chose Drupal. So why did we choose Drupal? I'll just highlight a few things that kind of work for us. First, of course, Drupal is commonly acknowledged to be very strong in content management. Universities which are content heavy and high traffic is a good fit. We had a WYSIWYG content editor, which means our webmasters no longer need to go to campus to edit. They can edit anywhere. They can easily modify content like Word, just pressing a few buttons and format the text, add images and hyperlinks. There's a very extensive module library, very much like Lego, that can extend the functionality of the core via hooks. So we can add capture, we can add social media, analytics, meta text, redirects, sitemaps. Drupal is, of course, very scalable. We can support a lot of complex integrations. Drupal is certainly very developer friendly. So if you've got a couple of good developers, you can easily integrate with third-party APIs. You can even, like what Tony has recounted in an example of Iowa, decouple the CMS to do a headless Drupal where Drupal just manages the content, but the content render is done through a different front-end application. Out of the box, of course, Drupal is mobile friendly. And last but not least, secure. Drupal is a fairly secure open source CMS. The vulnerabilities are usually made available very quickly, generally far faster than the times that we waited for commercial CMSs to provide a patch. So that, to summarize, the reason why we chose Drupal really is its strength in content management. In a typical university, you will find that faculty profiles, news, events, curriculum, publications, admissions, research, talks, podcasts, and all kinds of media. University is a very content-rich ecosystem, and we find that Drupal handles all of them very well. So we just decided on Drupal, and why is it that we went with Acquia? In fact, for the first year, we were on our own, hosted on premise, and then we engaged Acquia support. But it kind of made good sense. After the first year, we shifted out. I'll just let you know some of the features that work for us in the cloud. As a platform, as a service, we get our usual development, staging, production, and an environment known as RA, which is remote administration. It allows for routine security patches and other fixes. We get automatic uptime. I must say that it is up most of the time. I was confessing to Tony the other day that actually the only times when it went down was when we messed up in our codes. 99.95% uptime is the SLA. And whenever we log a ticket of critical severity, the response is almost instantaneous, which is really important to us. We get metrics and logs for all kinds of activities. Who does what to what part of the environment is all logged very well. We get our databases backed up automatically, which we can download, restore, or remove, although we never remove. We can set up housekeeping or data jobs to be run on a schedule. One unique feature is this thing called Acquia Insight, which will score your websites on things like performance, security, and other web best practices, so that the sites can run optimally. They flag the issues and rate your sites according to a score of 100, and then you can choose to address them as you see fit. So this was really good for us. Another really useful thing we found in the platform is this thing called customizable roles. Every organization is different. We kind of build custom roles for our central IT admin, our database administrators, our extended development team in the vendors and partners. You get all kinds of permission toggles which you can turn on and turn off along these 12 categories. So you can really go down to a very granular custom role that you can assign to anybody that you work with. So this was really good for us. Other than using Drupal for standard websites, we also use Drupal for other things. Say, for example, on the left here, you see a Smiles in SMU, which is an internal app for people to send acknowledgements to one another. And then we syndicate those acknowledgements and show them on a SharePoint website. Here we have a campus map. And in this campus map, we allow our facilities management colleagues to list the facilities with the pictures and opening hours. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my slides kind of froze.
We're loving the technical issues today.
This is the law of Murphy. Oh my goodness. I can't advance to my next slide. Let me just control that.
Yeah.
I'll just see if the Mac unfreezes. But certainly, yeah, we have a campus map. And the other things that we kind of integrated Drupal with are things like a fast course search that runs through our.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, very good. This is just the last part, 2 slides. The future, really, COVID has made a lot of plans go out of whack, and perhaps I will just talk about a couple of things that we wanted to work on. One on low-code site building, and the other one on personalization. So for low-code, there is a free license we've been offered by Acquia on the Site Studio, which allows the marketers and developers to kind of collaborate at the back end to develop sites very quickly. So some of these components that are available could be headers and footers, cards, hero banners, and accordions. The other area we wanted to kind of explore is this thing called personalization, which is a very difficult thing to do. We are kind of exploring with the Office of Student Life, who recently completed a virtual orientation called FOMO. Instead of fear of missing out, is freshman orientation moves online. Since much of the activity now kind of moves online, we thought we could serve different web experiences based on demographics or browsing behaviors. Good personalization is very hard to do. So what we call a wicked problem, but we are very game to give it a try. So that's all I have really about the SMU story. I hope you've kind of sensed the pain and the solution and a little bit about what we intend to do. Okay, that's. I apologize for that little hiccup, but I'm done.
That's okay. Do you want to stop sharing so we can have a little chat now? Okay. So yeah, while you were away on your Mac break, so to speak, I started talking about some of the things that we were going to discuss if we've got time, and I started to go into some of those unique challenges. So I jumped the gun a bit while you were away and said about the many different departments and they were kind of strong silos, and you were saying that many of these are led by strong characters and they want to do things their own way, etc. Can you give some of these examples of these unique challenges you see with digital compared to other industries?
Yeah, certainly. A university is usually made up of many departments. So say, for example, in SMU, we have 6 schools, 7 institutes, 18 research centers, and many more academic support units. So it's total like 40, 50 business units that make up a university. And when they are run by strong characters, there's a inclination for silos to be formed. And they will enjoy, they want to have their autonomy to kind of do their own thing, which is why many universities ended up with a fragmented environment for the web management. Right? They have a couple of CMSs, and really that kind of resulted in a lot of problem, especially when you have a small team. Yeah.
Okay, and so you've got these different, you're introducing these ways of managing these kingdoms, so to speak. But you also needed to protect that university's identity, and I talked a little bit about that before. So how did you see that consolidating and bringing Drupal in? How did it help with that?
Sure. Yeah, kingdoms and queendoms. Sometimes we have queendoms as well. So. Yeah, it's true that governance is key, and it's helping them see the trade-offs to help them make it work for them. That they continue to have autonomy over the content, which is what they are most proud of, but they don't have to worry about the system and alignment to the corporate identity. So when we have a centralized CMS like Drupal, we kind of take care of the bits that they don't want to take care, right? We will take care of the identity, the templating, the uptime, and the security. And then they can have free play over the content in the sites. Yeah, so it's kind of trying to strike a trade-off with them. Yeah.
Okay, and I can imagine that wasn't easy to do at the beginning. Is there any tips on how you could actually get that emotion and bring people online sitting on the call?
For sure, I think most of them. After they run the separate systems for a while, will find that these are the things they don't enjoy. Security is a never increasing threat, and having them to have to worry about security or having to worry about the infrastructure is something that not many departments have the capability to do so. So it is actually letting them try, and then knowing that they are not up to the mark, and then they kind of will start to consolidate. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So obviously you brought in Drupal to come across with Acquia's help. So how did you see Drupal and Acquia help with this?
I mean, ever since we went on to Acquia, of course, sites were spun up very easily. We can kind of control the permissions for all those who needed to access the system, and licensing wasn't never an issue. So it's actually much easier now to administer change, particularly when we, as the university grows, we have things which will require, say, a global change across all the sites in SMU. So having a centralized system and through the Acquia platform, we could administer these changes very easily. Yeah.
That's great, and I imagine it means that your IT teams, etc., are able to do their job, not have to worry about these other things too much, and actually innovate and do the things they probably enjoy a lot more, which is great. Now we talked about Drupal. We talked about it being open source, which is great. Obviously, you've got your people skilling up internally. Hopefully, you can start teaching some courses soon and stuff. But why did you change from hosting and managing yourself after just 1 year?
Yeah. So in the first year, we actually were on premise. We hosted our own Drupal, and then we engaged Acquia for support. The first year wasn't too ideal. There were a lot of downtimes, particularly mainly because we weren't very familiar with how an optimal arrangement or configuration of the stack should be. So our infrastructure colleagues weren't exactly comfortable with a LAMP stack, and most of the time, I remember in the first year we had to handle downtimes and firefighting and not able to do work that they enjoy, which is really in development. So after the first year, we kind of felt that it is better for Acquia to be troubleshooting for us on the cloud platform, which they have direct access to and ready access, rather than hosting it in-house and then getting an external support. So it just made good sense. Of course, there were cost savings as well because we never had to meddle with the infrastructural capital expenditure.
Yeah. So I mean, it's almost like a bit of best of both worlds, and you got kind of better support and things like that, but for overall lower total cost of ownership. That's great.
Yes.
So yeah, you said that you subscribed to the Acquia support to help while you were still hosting. Why didn't that side of it work out so much for you? Was it because the Acquia support was bad, or what was it?
No, because no, Acquia support was great because it's a 24/7 kind of support. We could log a ticket anytime. When we hosted on our own and were subscribed to Acquia support, you never really would be able to tell exactly where the problem lies because the Acquia support may not have a complete visibility of all the components that make up your environment. It kind of made sense for us to just be in an environment where the people who are supporting us are directly in charge of the environment. And Acquia Cloud is exactly just that. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's, I mean, thanks for that. It's a really nice compliment from there about the platform and everything around there. So I just wanted to summarize this about how Acquia comes along and helps support that open source side of things. It's great that we said you're an advocate of open source as well. I think many education facilities are. What's your feelings about open source personally against sort of legacy systems and things? Are you a strong open source advocate going forward?
Yeah, certainly I am enthusiastic about open source. I'm certainly not a developer myself, but the spirit of open source is something we really believe in because of all this collaboration and the sharing and riding on the shoulders of one another. Yeah, because solutions are always whatever you think of as a problem to solve. Somebody must have kind of solved it somehow, somewhere out there, and being able to learn from the community, to be able to participate in a very big and enormous Drupal community is something that I feel is the best learning opportunity for my folks. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, and hopefully it's going to be a continuation of a great partnership between us moving forward. So yeah, we're going to open up if there's any Q&A. We've got a Q&A window. We'll sit here for a few minutes if anything comes in. I know we're in Asia, not many people speak up live, so to speak, but the opportunity is there. We've got a great advocate for open source Wee Sen here. I got myself from the Drupal and Acquia side of things. So while we're here, we'll do it. But following this, we're going to have a little survey. We're going to pop up, just give your feedback. And we'll send through a recording. We'll send through some of the slides as well. I'll probably edit a few bits and pieces within there. And yeah, we'll send those and follow up within there. So yeah, we'll sit here for a few minutes if you want to have any questions while we're here. But yeah, thank you very much for joining otherwise. And yeah, come and speak to us if you want to know a little bit more about sort of how we can help on the education side of things, how we can help like what SMU is doing, things like the personalization, more than just a static site, and also things like the site studio that we're looking about, bringing that content editing and the flexibility into side of things a bit more. So we're going to sit here for a few minutes if you've got any of those questions.
I just want to add that I'm happy to connect with any of our friends in the higher education. If they ever have any questions or queries about how we've worked out with Drupal, please feel free to reach out to us through Tony or through Rachel.
Wonderful.
We are very willing to share. Yeah.
Thank you. It's very, very generous of you. We've actually just posted in the chat window as well. If we would love to hear from you and your feedback, you just click a link, very short form within there. It's always nice to get feedback, good or bad. Obviously, we had a few technical issues, I know. Sometimes they can't be helped, but it wasn't hosted on Acquia, so we weren't responsible for that downtime. Just wanted to put that one in there. So yeah, we'll stay on here for just a couple of minutes, but we would love your feedback as well. And I do just want to say thank you very much, Wee Sen, for your input on this. I know you're a busy guy in these changing times, and yeah, thank you very much for your great input. So
it's my pleasure, Tony. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
No worries. We'll sit here for maybe just a minute or so if there's any questions.
Yeah, I see Rachel, you're back on. Sorry, I was just booted out. For some reason, the Mac just froze. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming back too.
Yeah. And we were talking about, hey, have things gone?
Come through. Can you tell us more about web personalization? I can start off with actually, Wee Sen, do you want to talk a little bit more about how you see that personalization going?
So thank you, Douglas, for that question. We haven't started that much on personalization, but one of our ideas about that was to try to be able to detect certain patterns in the browsing behaviors, and then use that as a way or a mechanism to serve a different experience. So say, for example, if a person comes to the SMU site and we know that they are from Asia, maybe the hero banners that we have more Asian faces. Yeah, so that's just maybe knowing that you come from this part of the world. But if they seem to be interested in browsing the research topics in the website, then the content on the front could be configured to just show things which are more research related, right? Like our faculty breakthroughs in research, our news in research, our podcasts in research can figure a bit more prominently. So it's about having that kind of content to kind of know that you may be interested in this, and then give it to you without you having to go dig around. Yeah. So I'm sure Tony has a better description.
No, you've said it because you said it in the context of education and what you're planning to do, which is great. From what Acquia provides for personalization is a platform. So we have a software as a service that comes in and works very well with Drupal. Of course. So the content that you want to personalize with can actually be stored and served from Drupal. You don't have to recreate it again. So it connects very well with Drupal for that content, but also things like the personas and things. So like Wee Sen was just talking about, that browsing behavior, someone is clicking and looking at research, you store that and record that from the Drupal side, and that gets fed into that personalization engine where you can set those rules, etc. And you can click on the area such as that hero banner that you might want to change and say, I have a segment of people within Asia, I want to show this particular type of content. So that's where Acquia has come in with its digital marketing cloud, is working closely with that Drupal setup of sort of that next generation of web or digital experience moving forward. So yeah, Douglas, we can definitely have a discussion further about personalization and how we can help there. Thanks. So if there's any other questions, we'll give you about 30 seconds or so. Otherwise, we'll close off. So, no worries, Douglas. Cool. Anyone else going to be going?
Okay, thank you, Douglas, for the question. So Thank you all for attending. So the slides and the recording of this webinar will be posted on our website, and an email will be sent to you guys, okay? So be sure to look out for that. So thank you so much, Wee Sen, for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story as well. So we'll see you guys again, hopefully soon. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.